Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Now, a valid question at this point is, why am I going from Brisbane to Bundy via Darwin of all places? Well, that's because of this thing. This is the Cessna 182 that lives in Darwin, and a good mate of mine was taking it back from Darwin. Now, we weren't actually leaving from the main Darwin airfield, we were leaving from a small area called MTT. Now, it wasn't the longest airstrip for a loaded 182, but we were able to get off fine. We climbed up above the cloud and I started the time lapse. Now, our first stop on this trip was a very, very small airport called Borroloola. Borroloola is a small Aboriginal community in regional Queensland. It was just a fuel and pee stop for us before we were back in the air not long after. Mount Isa was much the same as Borroloola. There's a little bit more at Mount Isa, but we didn't leave the airport. We simply got fuel, got back in the plane, and we were back at it again. Now our next stop was actually something really special. It just looks like another small town from above, but when you actually come down, it is an avgeek's dream. If we have a look from the photo I took while there, you'll see a 707. But not just that. You might also spot the big red tail of a 747, and even a Super Connie sitting there in the background. Now, why are these three historical aircraft in the middle of nowhere, Australia? Longreach is nothing special, quite frankly. It's got a town of 3,000 people. It's the average small Queensland town. But what isn't average is the Qantas Museum that's there. Now, just over 100 years ago, this guy decided to start up a little pokey airline for the Queensland and Northern Territory. Now, the little pokey airline is the biggest airline in Australia, and we have a museum for it. The Qantas Founders Museum is an incredible place to visit, and I highly recommend it for any avgeek in Australia. I can also proudly say that I've actually held up the light show there. They hold a light and sound show every night that goes through Qantas's history, and they'll actually pause it if any aircraft go in and out not to interrupt it. We were an aircraft doing exactly that. That is a memory and a story I will cherish for the rest of my life. Ladies and gentlemen, that is how you turn a 4-hour, 350km drive into a 2-day, 15 hours of flying across both aircraft, 5-leg, 5,000km trip. Yeah, that could have been done easier.